Hello, I'm Anuj Gangahar from Citi Global Insights. I'm joined today by Vince Graziani, the Chief Executive Officer of IDEX Biometrics, which specializes in biometric authentication solutions. Vince, thanks so much for taking the time to join us today. We really appreciate it. Why don't you just start by describing IDEX Biometrics? What do you do? How do you do it?
Great, thanks Anuj. I appreciate the opportunity. So at IDEX, we're a fingerprint biometric company, and we're fairly specialized. Many of us have had smartphones in our past that had fingerprint biometrics authentication built in to access the phone. Perhaps you've been through a global entry TSA checkpoint where you put your hand down on a glass surface to have fingerprint biometrics measured and compared. What IDEX did was focus on the card environment from day one. So adding the capability of having a fingerprint sensor in a card form factor. So either a card that's used for payment or ID or both, a multi-use card, but being able to survive in an environment with no battery, so very little power, only the power you can harvest from a near-field communication device. Also being able to be integrated enough to have the fingerprint encryption, security, and match all happen and happen quickly enough that it was convenient for the user. In our technology, we can do a full image capture, encryption, and match against an encrypted template stored on the card in about a half a second. So it's very convenient for the user. And when you think about a card form factor, it's also a fairly harsh environment to survive for electronics. It has to be flexible. We all put these in our wallets. The cards are expected to last 2 to 3 years. And so IDEX has designed a system targeted for that very application.
Great. And so how long has that technology been under development? And can you tell us a little bit more about how it works and where we're at in the development cycle?
So IDEX was one of several companies that were building fingerprint authentication devices for the smartphone market. And back in 2016, our board and our CEO at that time recognized a very massive opportunity in the smart card space for payment cards and ID cards. And they determined that it was worth it to pivot the entire company towards the card and do a purpose-built solution for that environment. And today, IDEX is one of only 2 suppliers in that space. And we're actually the only one that built our solution from day one with the card environment in mind. So.
Okay, so in terms of future growth potential, digital ID is obviously an area that's very central to the development of a lot of companies' sort of revenue generation models going forward. Where do you see your growth potential? Where do you see the opportunities coming from going forward?
So, it's a little bit overused word, but the word massive comes to mind here is why I came to the company. There were 2 billion contactless payment cards issued and distributed in 2021. So that's a giant market just for payment. That's our simplest application where the fingerprint basically replaces the PIN. And so you can have any size transaction and the fingerprint authenticates you. So we know it's actually you. You can have a large contactless transaction, much more convenient for the user. Where it gets very interesting is when you start thinking about using it for digital ID and digital authentication. So the cards now with this fingerprint system on have enough compute horsepower and a sophisticated OS that you can have multiple applets. You can use a card to be your digital ID to store your crypto keys for the crypto wallet on your smartphone. In that case, you interact with the near-field communication on your smartphone. You can also use it as your secure ID for checkpoints at airports or for your driver's license. And that way, besides presenting an ID, which is something you have with your picture on it, you then are matching to a fingerprint, which is your unique fingerprint and therefore infinitely more secure. So we think the opportunity starts out with payments is very large, but when you add all the IDs in the world and the possibility of all of that environment, that ecosystem to go digital, it just becomes a huge market, greater than potential of 10 billion per year. So.
Great. Vince, thank you so much for sharing your insights today. We'll watch this space with great interest going forward. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Anuj.